Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having us. I'm going to take just a moment and pull up some slides because it's always better to avoid multitasking. So let me get those up and then I'll kick us off. All right. Well, with that, yeah, I just want to go ahead and get us going. So good morning, Red Carpet Committee. I love the welcome that you all just gave us. As Chad mentioned, I'm Molly Saylor. I'm a senior sustainability specialist with the city, and I work on waste topics in our environmental services department. I'm joined by my team member, Sarah Moline, and I'll just pause and let her introduce herself.
My name is Sarah Moline. I got to meet some of you just now in our little breakout sessions. I also work for the city's environmental services department and specialize in our program and policy implementation for waste-related topics. Back over to Molly.
Yeah, and we're just so excited to be here with you all and our colleagues at Republic Services to talk about the community recycling ordinance and the changes it will mean for our local businesses. Sarah and I are going to kick things off by talking more about the ordinance and city resources available to you. And then we'll hand it over to Republic to talk about how they're rolling this out to their customers. We should have plenty of time for questions after the two presentations. And we do have some of our other team members, Carolyn and Maritza from the city, here to support Q&A as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the community recycling ordinance. The bottom line of this ordinance is that it will bring recycling to all Fort Collins commercial and multifamily properties by June 30th of this year. And in the following slides, Sarah and I are just going to talk more about the details of that, what steps are needed from business owners, and how the city can support businesses through these changes. So the community recycling ordinance was developed in 2015 and 2016 in collaboration with our local waste haulers and the community, and passed in 2016 by City Council. Part of the work to develop the ordinance with haulers and the community was to identify a long rollout period ending June 30th of this year. Another key detail of the ordinance is that it requires haulers to charge commercial and multifamily properties for recycling services that are equivalent to 1/3 of their overall trash service. So if you're just asking yourself, why do we need a community recycling ordinance? We know that our community is extremely passionate about recycling and extending, just really through our recent work through the Our Climate Future planning process, we really heard this affirmed that more reuse and recycling continues to just be a top priority for our community. And we also know that we have a zero waste goal to have 100% landfill diversion by 2030. And so extending recycling services to all parts of our community through this ordinance is a really important next step. So if you're a business or multifamily property owner or manager, what do you need to do? If you're already subscribing to recycling services, if you already have recycling, you can use our service level calculator to check and see if your current service meets the 1/3 threshold. And I will show you that calculator and walk you through an example in just a moment. And if you don't have recycling, you can also use that calculator to determine how much recycling service you'll need. And in both cases, you'll need to get in touch with your waste hauler to double check those calculations and to adjust your service. We also just want to start letting you all know we have some support available. You can see on the right here our WRAP program. And Sarah's going to talk more about that, but we just want everyone to know that not only is it about adding recycling service, it's also about really getting off on the right foot, and we have things that we can do to support you in that. So more to come, but first I want to talk about the service level calculator. So this service level calculator is something we've designed to help you walk through thinking through what service do you already have and what would 1/3 of that service be as recycling, and really help you plan what adjustments you may need to make. So I've used an example here, and I'll just talk you through it over a couple slides. And of course, this is available on our website for you to also download and play with. So under step 1, you list your current service for trash on the left and for recycling on the right. So in this example, the business has a 6 cubic yard trash dumpster that's serviced once a week with no recycling. So there's nothing there on that right side. So their total trash volume per week is 6 cubic yards. The second step is really letting you know if you meet the requirements. So in this case, the business has no recycling, 0%, and thus it does not meet that requirement. This is why the cell is red. As you get to 33% or 1/3 being achieved, it turns green. So in the third step, this is where you really can start to understand how you might need to add or adjust your recycling service. So there are two ways to accomplish the requirement. One, which is listed under option A, is that you can simply add recycling service on top of your existing trash service. For this case, that would mean adding 2 cubic yards to the existing 6. Or option B is where you can decrease your trash service as you increase recycling. So this is often a really good option because the space in the trash dumpster that was previously taken up for all those recyclables can actually be reduced because those recyclable materials are moving to their own dumpster. And this is what we call right sizing, and it's a really helpful way for a business to avoid paying for too much service. So we have this calculator again on our website. We're always happy to support you. If you need help walking through it or sort of double checking how you've done it, you can reach out to us. And as we mentioned, we'd also love for folks, once they've used this calculator and understand what adjustments need to be made, to get in touch with their hauler, double check, and then go ahead and add that service. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Sarah to talk through just a few more details of the ordinance and really get into what support beyond this calculator is available to you from the city. So Sarah, take us away. Take us away.
Perfect, thank you, Molly. So after hearing kind of the details of this ordinance and what the requirements are, you may be feeling a little bit unsure if recycling is going to work at your business or property. So there are options if you think this is something that will not work for you. As Molly mentioned, the city does have the WRAP program, our Waste Reduction and Recycling Assistance Program. That's a great first step if you're feeling unsure. Reach out to us and we can help troubleshoot most problems and help figure out a solution for adding recycling on site. There's also variances available for specific cases. So a variance to not have to meet the requirements of the ordinance. I'll go over a few more of those specifics on the next slide. You also have the option of refusing the recycling bins and carts. You would still be charged for this service as the ordinance requires that waste haulers still charge you for the service even if you don't have the bins on site to put your recyclables in. Another important note is just that this ordinance does apply to all waste haulers in Fort Collins. So regardless of which waste hauler you would be going with, they do have to comply and will have to offer you this service. So again, just to reiterate, our goal as the city is to support you all as you're adding and improving your recycling programs. We are here to support you. So you can contact us at the WRNR email or visit the WRAP website and fill out a little intake form and we'll get you some assistance. Next slide, please. So just to go into some specific scenarios about when a variance would apply. First off, if you have space constraints preventing you from adding dumpsters or carts to your property, that could be one case. Another case would be if your recyclables are self-hauled to a drop-off center by your employees, or if your apartment residents do that, that's another case. If you use a separate licensed collector to collect your recycling, so it's different than who collects your trash, then you would be eligible for a variance. Another option is if the only location available on site is unsafe to service, or if your location just doesn't generate recyclables, then the ordinance wouldn't apply as well. Next slide, please. So if you think one of those scenarios applies to your location, you can apply for the variance by visiting our website for the ordinance, fcgov.com/CRO. You simply download the variance application, complete it, and submit it. And then our compliance office will verify and do processing of the application. And once they make a determination if the variance is approved or not, they will let you know and also let your waste hauler know. Next slide, please. So I want to round off my section here by just doing a little clarification on one of the most common things we hear about recycling, and that's, does what I put in the bin actually get recycled? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. If you're putting the right things in your recycling bin and following our local recycling guidelines, they will get to the right place and be recycled and be turned into new items. So on the left here, you do have just a little snapshot of our recycling guidelines, which we have available if you're interested. The top blue section there shows items that you can recycle. And then the bottom shows the items that we really want to keep out of recycling. And that's the especially important part to know, because by putting the wrong items in the bin, that can cause problems. Bins with too much contamination can be rejected and sent to the landfill. So you can ensure that your recyclables will be recycled by making sure you recycle the right things and keep the wrong things out. But yes, recycling is real. Next slide, please. Perfect. So just to kind of round off some more exciting resources, I think, that are coming soon, that we can have, that we have available to support you all. We are putting together specific toolkits for businesses and multifamily properties to set up or improve your recycling programs. So those will be available through the WRAP program very soon to make use of. We also are going to be doing some community-wide communications about this ordinance and the community recycling ordinance, so that more folks understand that this is really an exciting opportunity to add more recycling to our community. And in addition to this info session chat today, we also have several other info sessions scheduled over the next couple months. You can see those dates there. And if you want to come hang out with us again or have a friend or colleague sign up for an info session, you can do that on our CRO website. Next slide, please. So this wraps up Molly and I's section. Thank you all for your time and welcome. Molly and I's contact info is listed on that slide there. We will be sticking around today to answer questions, but please don't hesitate to reach out if you have more. And now I think we're turning it over to our colleagues over at Republic.
Good morning, everyone. I am Holly McAwee. I'm the Municipal Sales Manager here at Republic Services. We may have Dave Lumen popping in too. He's the Sales Manager over here. And we are both transplants from Gallegos Sanitation. So thank you, Chad and the Fort Collins Chamber of Commerce, for allowing us to be here today. And thank you, Sarah and Molly, too, for your presentation and the opportunity to co-present on the CRO today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, is everybody seeing my screen now?
We do, you're good to go.
Good to go, all right, I like to hear that. Well, with the CRO, part of our goal here at Republic Services is to make sure that we can help your multifamily complex or business become compliant, and whether that's answering questions, trading out your services, adding recycling, whatever that might look like, we have a sales team that's devoted to that and can help you figure out the 1/3 metrics. I know we've had a lot of people call in asking about decimals. How do I get a 1/6 of a 1/10 of a bin? We can help you with all of that. So I just wanted to reassure everybody that we're here to help with those pieces. And like Sarah and Molly did elaborate, regardless of who your hauler is, whether it's us, whether it's the guys in green, everyone has to abide by this CRO ordinance if you're within the city of Fort Collins. So we're doing our best right now to make sure that we can onboard customers who don't have recycling with the recycling resources that they need, or to help walk you through the variance forms if you meet some of the criteria that the city has outlined. We're committed to serve the Fort Collins community and all of northern Colorado. Some of the ways that we do that is through simple solutions. So we want to make it easy. We want to make it easy for you and handle it from here. So if you give us a call and you need something, we want to be able to take care of it, offer you reliable service, and then also environmental responsibility, whether that's the goals of the city, the overarching goals of the company, and making sure that we're forging forward on our sustainability initiatives as well. So part of that is definitely being compliant with the recycling ordinance that's being set forth right now. So simple solutions, starting with some of the equipment that we offer. We do have 3-yard dumpsters ranging from front load. We have a variety of different equipment, different sizes to meet your specific needs. And we also offer 95-gallon carts for recycling as well. I know we've had some questions come up about enclosures and spacing and concerns that way. If that is one of your questions or you do have concerns, our team, our inside sales and outside sales team, can come out and visit your spot and do an audit. If you feel like you are one of those businesses that can apply for a variance and because of spacing restrictions, then there is a link to the variance form that I'll go through on my presentation here, and then also on fcgov.com//CRO, where you can pull that down, or you can contact the city as well. But either party will be able to help you through your next steps. Okay. So some of the commonly asked questions that we've had is by June 30th, you are required to have 1/3 of your overall waste volume be recycling. If that's something that you do not want to bin, or you do refuse the service, there is a special form that you'll need to fill out, and it's called the City of Fort Collins Recycling Services Refusal Confirmation Form. That's a mouthful, Molly. But you can go ahead and fill that out, and then that will let the city and us know that you do not want to bin. However, as the hauler and per the requirement, we do have to charge for 1/3 of your overall waste volume towards recycling. And then to contact us about containers, you can just go ahead and email gsicells@republicservices.com, or you can always call our main phone number. I realize not everybody on this call is a customer of ours, and that's absolutely fine. You just need to get in touch with your local hauler and ask them about right-sizing your containers or switching out to seeing how you become compliant with this ordinance. As I alluded to earlier, to apply for the variance, you can go to this URL that's listed here, fcgov.com recycling/community recycling ordinance. After you've completed it, you'll send it to this email address right here. And then for any other questions that relate to the city, they have a new email address, and it's wrr@fcgov.com. The last question that people have been asking is, hey, where's my recycling going? Are you actually recycling it? And yes, we are. We're taking it to the Larimer County Recycling Center. So most of our business customers have single stream recycling, and it will go over there. And then if you're if you're just doing cardboard recycling too, we still take it over to Larimer County. Contamination, how do we combat it? I think that's been a big question that has come up. Hey, what do I do if my recycling is contaminated? And I want to reassure you that we have resources. We have internal resources, people that can come to your site. They can do an audit. They can walk you through what is recyclable, what is not, and how to clean up your stream. The city has a great program too with their WRAP program that they alluded to help with recycling resources. And between the two teams, we have recycle guides, we have packets for your tenants, for your employees, whatever that space looks like. We do have a great deal of educational resources to share and have people available to come out and present to if that's something that you feel would be beneficial. Or we can always set up Zooms too for those organizations that maybe are still working remotely. And I just want to call out to both the cities and ours. We have a resource on contamination and if you wonder if an item can be recycled or not, ours is called the Waste Wizard, and it lives on gsiwaste.com. The city has the A to Z guide, and that lives on their website. So you can type in almost any type of material or product, and it will say, hey, that's not recyclable. It should go here. It provides you different alternatives. And then if it is recyclable, it'll give you those outlets as well. And I know from our side of it, if there is an item that is not listed in our guide, we get a notification and we can always answer that, those one-off questions that come about, and I know the city can too. All right, so just a quick highlight of how we've kept customers informed about this. As the Fort Collins team let us know, this did come about in 2016, so they gave us a long rollout period to get everybody on board with the CRO. What we've been doing most recently, though, is making site visits as our customers have requested those. We've done some email communications. We did a mass mailing, direct mail, what was it? 90 days ago now, where we presented about the CRO, offered the variance forms, a recycle guide, and some of the city's materials as well. So I think everyone who's a customer should have received those with a pretty thorough explanation about this. We've been getting phone calls, and we have a landing page set up on our website on gsiwaste.com that talks through the CRO as well and has some of those commonly asked questions. We do have a newsletter that's coming out, so watch for that in your email inbox. And then today, of course, is the presentation. All right. Well, I know there might be some questions, so we wanted to leave plenty of time for everybody to be able to have all their questions answered. And I just want to thank everyone this morning for your time and for being loyal customers in the chamber for allowing us to present today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to Steve. Thank you to our friends at Republic. There are some questions in the chat, so I'll kind of start working through those.
Great.
And then I do encourage the rest of the group, as questions come up, please do put it in the chat. This is a good time to kind of get anything asked and answered. So a question from Todd with Direct Family Care of NOCO is asking, with the known limitations of recycling of a variety of plastics, how is the city addressing this, or what % of plastic is successfully turned into a new product?
I think Sarah's going to go ahead and take us into this question. And there's also several that are related about our recycling guidelines. So I wonder if we might just move through a few of those. But Sarah will be our resource on all of these recycle right. And then, of course, we want to make space for our Republic colleagues to provide their perspective.
Perfect. Thank you all. Molly, would you mind pulling up that slide with our recycling guidelines, please? So I don't have to mind the items, but perfect. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for that question about plastics. It's definitely something that we get a lot of questions on, and there is lots of confusion because it varies so much from place to place. Definitely want to make it clear that if you are putting the plastics that we have on our guidelines into your recycle bin, they are getting recycled. So best way to know if an item is recyclable is actually to focus on the shape rather than any sort of number you see on the item itself. So in Fort Collins, the only plastics that you can put in your bin are plastic bottles, plastic tubs, and plastic jugs. So by bottles, soda bottles, water bottles, things like that. Jugs like laundry jugs, milk jugs, and then tubs is a little bit tricky sometimes, but we just mean like the white plastic dairy tubs, like for yogurt or sour cream, or sometimes you get like the sturdy takeout containers for from the deli, like for soups and things. But other than that, really any other plastic that you put in is not going to be recycled because there's no market to actually take them. We had a shift in 2018-ish where the recycling markets changed, and suddenly certain recyclables like the plastic berry containers, plastic salad containers, lots of the plastic to-go containers didn't have a place to go anymore. No one wanted to use them to turn them into new things. So because of that, we chose to remove those items from the guidelines. And that's why you don't see those reflected on what you can recycle anymore. I also saw a question about the difference between the bottle on the top of the recycling guidelines and then the one that's on the bottom. And you're totally right, it is liquids. So empty empty containers, empty bottles, that's what we want. No half full soda bottles. Those cause lots of issues for people. I also saw a question about electronic waste. A great resource for any sort of electronic waste or other items that you have questions about is the resource that Holly mentioned, the recycling A to Z list. So if you go to fcgov.com/A-Z, you can look up almost every item that you have, including electronic waste, and find out where you can dispose of it locally. Electronic waste.
Sarah?
Oh yeah, go for it, Holly.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna give a quick plug for a local business, IT Refresh down the road. They take electronics to just down the way from us, actually. So that's a resource. We can always pick it up, and we have outlets for electronic resources. And then there's Waste Not that does as well. So just a couple ones off the top of my head that do take electronics.
Yeah, thank you so much, Holly. Yeah,
Of course.
those are listed on the A to Z list. Yeah, any local option. And electronic waste is banned from the landfill. I also like to plug that too, because it can be hazardous. So we really like to get it to the right place. And there are lots of local businesses who could take those. Molly, I think you have some other questions maybe you were going to address. So I'll jump it back to you. Unless anything else to add?
Yeah, I think maybe we can let Republic just weigh in on any of the things we've just said. And I also know, Chad, we can also kick the question moderation back to you.
Oh, sure. So let's dive this, because a few did pop up. So I kind of just got to get back to where we were. So a good question from Anita Kelly of Elevations Credit Union is she's wondering, if you're located in the county, can you still participate?
So folks who are in the county, we certainly support them recycling, but this ordinance specifically is really just for our jurisdiction in the city of Fort Collins, so within city limits. But of course, we always support anyone who wants to recycle.
Thank you. Good question from Romy of RC Auto Detail and Carpet Cleaning is, how much will it be for monthly recycling services?
I can answer that question. It's best to actually contact our sales department, because we can walk through. There's a few different variables with it, with the frequency of your recycling pickup per week, or if it's every other week or once a month, the size of your container, and the location. So I encourage you to email GSI sales at republicservices.com, or if you wouldn't mind putting your information in chat, I can have one of our sales representatives follow up with you directly.
Help out with that too, as well.
Oh, John, you're on. Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
feel free to reach
Thank you,
out to me
John.
anything regarding sales, setup, or any of the cost or size, anything like that. I'm also very willing to meet with you and work with anybody and make sure you're properly set up and meet all the ordinances. I've met with a few people already in this group. So again, my number and email is in the chat. So
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Question from Lori Scott with Fossil Ridge Neighbors is, will the city be adding recycling options throughout downtown for the public or throughout the rest of the city?
Caroline Mitchell's on, and she has been one of our champions for this for a long time. So I'll let Caroline tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that question. We actually collaborated with our colleagues in the Parks Department a couple years ago to add recycling bins to be paired with all the trash bins in all the parks and downtown in Fort Collins. So the good news is we agree, and those should be implemented. Any of the public bins throughout parks and downtown should be paired, both trash and recycling together.
Awesome, thank you. Great question. Question from Chris with BizWest is, what happens to the items that are put in the recycling bin that don't have a recycling demand? I think, are you alluding to the little berry containers and stuff like that, Chris?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe Holly, you want to kick us off. No, I was actually going to just say, Holly, why don't you kick us off and then we'll round out this time.
Well, we would encourage you not to put those in since there's not a market and they're not on our guidelines. They're considered what would be kind of a contaminant. So I would encourage you not to put those in there. When it relates to plastics and there's not a market, but they are recyclable, what will happen is those will be stored up, and then once the market does come or an outlet, then those items are sold to that third party. Molly, did you have any more to add on that?
I was just going to open up to our team members, and it looks like Caroline wanted to add a little bit more.
Okay.
So I think just to put an extra point of clarity on it, those things, I absolutely agree with what Holly said. And if things are put in the recycling bin that we don't have markets for, that don't match up with the recycling guidelines, then those are sorted out at the sorting facility. So if anybody likes watching some of those videos of how things work, I absolutely suggest Googling. They're a type of facility called a material recovery facility, or in the industry lingo, we call them MRF. And that's the facility where all the materials will go to and they get sorted out. And the materials that don't have recycling markets will be sorted out and they will be sent to the landfill. So I sort of envision, you know, if whether or not, if there's a material that doesn't have a recycling market, even if you put it in the recycling bin, it just means it takes a longer and more expensive trip to the landfill, but it'll end up in the landfill either way. So it's better for you to just help it get a direct path to the landfill and only put the items in the recycling bin that are on the recycling guidelines.
Awesome, thank you. And actually kind of a good question from John with Audubon Rockies in regards to landfill space. He's wondering, because landfill space is limited, are there other options being explored to handle waste?
Caroline, I think that would be a prime question for you with your long work on our regional waste shed.
Yes, you're absolutely right, John. The Larimer County landfill is reaching capacity. It is anticipated to be full by 2024. And there has been a regional collaboration working on that topic with community members and elected officials and our haulers. That work actually also started in 2015, and it resulted in the Regional Waste Shed Project. And Larimer County is building a new landfill in North Larimer County near the Rawhide Power Plant. And they're also building a transfer station on the site of their current facility. And there is also still the private landfill in North Weld County that is operated by Waste Management. So, you know, it's not like trash is going to start piling up on the corners of the streets. But in addition to the landfill options, the Regional Waste Shed Project has identified opportunities and is committed to moving forward with compost facilities for both yard trimmings and food scraps, because those constitute almost 50% of the material that our community is still landfilling, and is also working towards a construction and demolition recycling facility that would be similar to how we can take residential recyclables and we can mix them all together in one bin and then sort them out and get them to the appropriate recycling markets. A mixed construction and demolition recycling facility would provide that same equivalent for the materials that come out of the construction and demolition industry. So those are really exciting prospects on the horizon, and we have more information about that on our website and also on Larimer County's website. So yes, some great opportunities coming up in the future.
Very cool, great question. A little bit more kind of clarification on a few things. So I'm going to ask two questions because they're kind of in the same ballpark. First question from Debbie from Santa Cops is, I can put office paper in my recycle bin, but not office paper after it's been shredded. Why? And then a follow-up question from Carl with Small Fish is, I heard that you can't have the caps on soda bottles. Is that true? So kind of a little bit clarification on how to recycle.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a stab at that one and then open it up to see if Holly has another way of explaining it. So shredded paper is a big question as well. Essentially, if you think about what you're putting in your single stream curbside recycling bin, all of those materials go to the materials sorting facility. and have to be separated out with lots of machinery and things. So if you're putting shredded paper directly into that bin with all of your other items, when it goes to the sorting facility, that shredded paper can't make it through the process and it gets really messy and will literally fall through the cracks. Whereas whole pieces of paper don't have that problem. They'll make it through the system. So that's why we always encourage folks, put that whole paper in. You can take shredded paper directly to one of our recycling centers where it's paper only, so it's already sorted, but you don't want to put those shreds into the single stream bin with your other recyclables because it gets messy. And then as for the caps, we call it the caps debate. This is another really common.
Yeah.
And we do have a fun video if you ever want to check it out. I put our playlist in there. But really, you can kind of go either way. You can be team caps on, as we call it. So if you make sure that your bottle or container is empty and it's a plastic bottle and a plastic lid, as long as it's empty, you can loosely put it back on and then stick it all as a whole item in your recycling bin. Or before you dispose of things, you can, again, empty out your bottle, take the cap off the bottle, put the bottle in the recycling bin, and then put the cap in the trash. Really, what we want to avoid is caps by themselves in the recycling bin. Again, it's too small. It's not going to make it through that sorting system. So just don't put them in by themselves. Either have them on the bottle or throw them away in the trash so they don't fall and bonk anyone on the head.
And I think to add to that on the cap side, the way that I think about it, the easiest way is if it's smaller than a postage, a little Post-it note, it's going to fall through the cracks. But if you have, say, a dairy tub lid, then those absolutely can go through the recycling. And I agree with what you said, Sarah, on all those other points. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So there's quite a few more questions. I have this meeting ending at 10. However, I will stay on the call. And if our Molly and Holly and our other friends, if you guys are able to stay on the call for an extra few minutes, anyone who's willing to stay on the call to get those questions answered, feel free to, because I won't end this until we got to get off. So, but if you have to leave at 10, feel free, get out of here at 10. That's the agreement we have with Red Carpet. But if you can stay, go ahead and stay. We'll keep working through questions.
And I think our team members are available.
Okay.
Yeah. Same on my side too. And this is being recorded. And I think both teams were planning on utilizing it. So we're happy to share it out after this event too.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll keep working through these questions. And then if you guys got to go, you let me know. But I think they're important and we'll certainly get these out to everybody. Kind of a really good question. What's funny is I was thinking the same thing, Nate, and it looks like Carl was also. Nate with Mill Street Metalworks is asking, I use my kitchen sink to rinse my recyclables, but I wonder sometimes if my water usage negates the recycling benefits. Are there any quick tips for us to help reduce or decide if water usage is worth making those items recyclable?
I'm happy to share just sort of the guidance we give folks, and maybe Republic has some things to add to that, but we do want our recycling loads to be clean and really like successful in our system. But when we talk about clean, just a quick rinse is typically fine. They don't need to be scrubbed, but just clean and dry is what we're looking for. So quick rinse usually does it. And when we've also chatted with our water conservation folks about this, typically there are much other larger sources of water consumption in your home or your business than those quick rinses. So it's wonderful to be thinking about it. And also if you're looking to conserve water, there's probably other places in your business, and our water conservation folks would also probably be very happy to talk through some of those options and programs they have to support you.
Another thing that we've had some of our customers indicate that they do is actually if they're planning on running their dishwasher already, they'll put their recyclables in there for just a quick rinse, if they're planning on putting their normal dishes in there as well. So kind of a 2-for-1 to help conserve water resources rather than rinse it in the sink and then wash your dishes over here.
And the one other thing that I might add is that it's important to remember recycling. The benefits for recycling are when we're really looking throughout the entire life cycle. So while the water that we're using to rinse the bottle is obvious right in front of us, because that's the part of the process that we're interacting with, Whether you're talking about water use or pollution or energy usage, on all of these sort of primary environmental metrics, if you look at the life cycle perspective of extracting natural resources and turning them into products versus taking products that already exist and converting them back into new products, recycling wins out in that life cycle perspective all the time. So just remember that you're not necessarily seeing the full impacts of either the virgin product cycle or the recycling systems, but that you can absolutely rest assured that your rinsing is not going to negate the benefits of recycling.
Awesome. Great question and great clarification. Kind of a business related question from Romy with auto detailing is, this is going to be an added expense for small businesses. Are there options to help with this?
Molly, are there resources with WRAP?
Yes, that's where I was going to just start, is from the perspective of just making sure that you've got a successful system. WRAP is going to be your best bet. But I think part of the question was, is there anything available to help offset costs? And I think that is what we had talked about a little bit with the idea of right sizing. So as you move recyclable material out of your dumpster, you actually are creating space in that dumpster that you may not need to be paying for. So what we'd love for you to check first is to make sure that if that is an option to lower your trash service as you increase your recycling service, you may end up with pretty close to a net cost there. So I'd love to just see if that is clear in concept, or if that's an area maybe we can go into a little bit more.
And I think to echo that, Molly, is just when recycling is added to, we can look at the service frequency, the past service or current service frequency versus what it will look like, after June 30th too, because that will adjust some of the costs as well. And John would be able to better speak to that and meet with, the customer or the person individually on what that looks like for that particular small business.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then Molly, if you can just remind the group one more time, I know it's in the chat, but the dates where there's more info sessions. That way, if some questions aren't asked now, maybe there's a secondary opportunity.
Absolutely. And I can actually go ahead. We had a slide for that, and I'll pull it back up so folks can just jot that down if they haven't already. And all of this information is also available at our website, fcgov.com/CRO. And then we also have a similar website for our WRAP support. So all of this and much, much more is there. And yeah, we really hope that we will see folks at these city-led info sessions. And we know that oftentimes our advertising is sort of best accentuated by word of mouth. So we really appreciate you also talking to your fellow business owners about the fact that this is coming and that there's a lot of resources available for you and others.
Yeah, thank you so much. Does anybody have any other questions? I think we kind of went through a lot of them. There are some comments, so thank you, Lori Scott. I agree with you. This is a positive step forward. There's a lot of thank yous to Republic and the city for your time giving this great presentation. So I want to make sure you guys are aware that this group did really appreciate the insight. Any other questions from those left on the call? Anything you want to touch on?
I saw one in their chat about someone asking about the Coke bottle on the bottom of the city's recycle guide, why that's not recyclable. And that person is correct that it's because it's full of liquid. So clean and empty is the resounding message between the city, between us, among other haulers as well. It needs to be clean and empty so that it doesn't contaminate the other materials that are in the recycling.
Awesome, thank you. So drink all your beers and drink all your sodas, gang.
Yeah.
Make sure they're empty.
And I
Every last drop, right?
Yep.
I might see one last question in the chat that was about the plastic lids that sometimes have something stuck to them. And I'm not 100% sure exactly what you're talking about, but I can tell you that there's in general, the lid guidelines that we were just talking about earlier in this conversation would apply whether or not there's sort of like a plastic liner or anything inside them. or if we didn't actually really get to your question, maybe you could clarify in the chat or pop on to help make sure we really got to the answer for your question.
Loretta, was that you? Do you want to clarify what you're talking about?
There we go.
Oh, there you
Okay.
go.
But I was asking was, sometimes there's an extra layer or something really stuck on that's stuck on well and can't be easily removed by us, but maybe if you have some chemicals in the recycling center, you know, they would take it off. I was just wondering.
Are you talking like a seal? Because I know sometimes there's seals on the inside of lids, or there's a secondary piece of plastic that's kind of in there. Or are you talking about food waste?
No, I was thinking of something stuck like to the top of a lid that's like the label, but sometimes
Oh,
they
the
use the heavy
label. Okay.
paint. But sometimes it's, you know, maybe a heavier cardboard or something that's stuck on.
Loretta, you're just making me realize I'm holding a bottle cap from my kombucha, and it does have like, it's a metal cap, but has like a plasticky thing almost on the inside. Is that what you were referring to? Something similar to
I
that?
was thinking more of on the outside of a larger size, but it's okay. I can't think of an example right now, but I have come across what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Caroline? Is that? She's the real secret recycling queen.
Real and secret. So I am not the pretend. Yeah, you know, Loretta, I'm trying to think through some examples of what that might be, but I would say there's sort of, oh gosh, and now I just got a low battery symbol on my computer. So if I disappear, don't take it personally. So I think it's probably just fine. And if the thing that is stuck on your lid is substantial enough that it might be more that other material than the plastic, then I would consider not putting it into the recycling bin because it would be more of a mixed material. But I think as long as it's something small, then I wouldn't really worry about it. And the systems are generally designed to accept, you know, those basic materials that we talked about, the plastic bottles and tubs, in an as-is condition. So they're used to sorting out the different elements that come in with part of that packaging.
Okay, thank you.
And Loretta, I just thought of an example of maybe this is what you're referring to, the pasta that's already made that you just warm up over near the dairy section where it's a plastic container and then there's cardboard on over the top of it. So in that case, what I would just say is just tear your cardboard off and you can still put it in your single stream, but then your plastic is over here and your cardboard is here all in one tub. Is that more of what kind of a product you were talking about?
Not exactly, but I've got another example. Like a Snapple bottle, for instance. If they have a little plastic thing on the outside of the main bottle, you know, they sometimes some bottles have a label that's plastic or something. So you don't want us to try and get the labels off and so on.
Yeah, maybe I can just share sort of another one of those overarching principles that, you know, I think sometimes for recycling guidelines, they can get really confusing because there's so many materials that we interact with every single day. And if you're trying to sort of make a mental list of every single individual item and whether it's a yes or a no, it can be really tricky. And so we can also try and talk with folks about sort of the general rules to apply that can help apply to all the different materials rather than trying to memorize things. But in general, the recycling sorting process is designed to handle materials in the way that you receive them. So for instance, you don't need to crush your aluminum cans, you don't need to crush your plastic bottles. I've been working in the recycling industry for a long time with a lot of committed people, and I had the fortune of managing a whole bunch of volunteers at a nonprofit that I worked for. And one time, one of my volunteers called me because she'd just been at the emergency room the day before because she'd been trying to cut the little plastic spout out of her orange juice carton to make sure she could recycle it. And So I can tell you in general, don't ever injure yourself for the sake of recycling. You do not have to cut things out of materials. You don't have to, in general, the systems, they're set up to receive the materials in the way that you've received them. So you can apply that to lots of different containers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Anything from the group that's still on the call? I do appreciate your guys' commitment. I think this is an important topic, and I'm glad so many questions are being asked. Anybody on the call have comments or questions?
Patty, I'm just seeing that John had a question, so it looks like maybe Elise did as well, but I just wanted to flag that there was that one unresolved too.
You know, why don't the two, John, why don't you go first and we'll go to Elise. Why don't you ask your question? For whatever reason, I'm probably missing it in the chat, so I apologize.
No worries. So I'm just curious, and maybe this is a question for Caroline, but beyond landfill use for waste, are other options being explored that are out there, such as incineration, waste to energy? You know, you mentioned composting, which is huge, but knowing that, you know, landfill space is finite all across the country, I know there's new technology out there to help handle waste, to reduce what we're actually sending to landfill, since we'll, you know, eventually run out of space altogether. What other options are we looking at in our region that might be of benefit down the road?
Well, I can say that the Environmental Protection Agency has created a number of years ago what's called a waste hierarchy. And it is something that we apply here locally and many places across the country. And, you know, it starts with those goals of ideally reducing the material that we use, of just, you know, the lightest environmental impact is from the material that you just didn't purchase because you didn't need it. And, you know, going through the traditional reduce, reuse, recycle, compost, and waste to energy is absolutely part of that hierarchy, but it it's sort of just above landfilling. And so in general, our approach is to try and get as many materials out of the waste stream as possible that we can get into that reuse and recycling cycle, whether it's through recycling or composting. And then absolutely looking at options for harvesting any, you know, potential use or energy out of the materials that are left. One of the complications is that those facilities tend to be really expensive, and they actually operate most efficiently on the same materials that we already have options for recycling and composting. So in some places, they actually compete with the recycling and composting programs. And again, when we look in that life cycle perspective, the amount of energy saved from recycling an item is more than the energy that you can get from converting it in a waste to energy plant. So there are a lot of those types of facilities in different parts of Europe and in parts of the East Coast. They tend to be in places where there isn't as much land, and so the cost of landfilling is really expensive, and then those costs tend to start getting closer together. So there are a lot of local factors that come into play in those considerations, but I would say it's definitely on the radar, but probably not our first step, that we have other opportunities first.
Elise.
Yeah, thanks. I did not put this in the chat because I just thought of it just real quick here while I have you guys, and I really appreciate this. This is very, very informative. But I've heard that glass is kind of up in the air because the problem is that it breaks easily and then it's not recyclable. So is that true? Any thoughts on the glass side of it?
I can speak for Republic side. We absolutely do want glass. The great thing is it's pretty much a closed loop circle here in Colorado. So we've done a couple of studies, and I believe, Becca, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 60 days from the time that your glass goes into your bin till the time that it's recycled, and then it's put back on the shelf, and whether it's beer, a different type of liquid. So we encourage glass. The other, in your single stream, the other thing that you can do if you're concerned about it breaking, you can always source separate it and then take it over to the Timberline Recycling Center here in Fort Collins. And they have a big roll-off bin there that's devoted to, you know, being able to deposit your glass into that particular stream. So that's the purest form of it.
Is it possible to recycle any glass that's broken or no? Does it need to be intact?
It does not need to be intact. There's different processes that have evolved over the years. So there might have been a point in time at which that, was important in the process. But I can tell you at this point in time and moving forward, that the glass, honestly, a lot of it breaks through the process anyhow. And once it gets to that sorting facility, again, I just am fascinated with materials recovery facilities, so I could on about them for a long time. I think they're so cool. But one of the first steps in that process is that they do actually break the glass and have that drop out from the rest of the materials as part of their sorting process. So focus on the breaking part of it. But as Holly was saying, we're really fortunate to have the closed loop recycling for glass here in Colorado. So that glass, whether it goes through the source separated at the drop-off center or whether it goes through your mixed single stream recycling, it'll go through a business in Broomfield called Momentum Recycling. And they specialize just in sorting glass. And so they will separate it out into all the different subtypes of glass that there can be and different sizes and colors. And then they sell that clean material straight to either Rocky Mountain Bottling in Inglewood, where it gets made into bottles for Coors, or to Owens, Illinois, right here in Windsor. So glass is a heavy material. It costs a lot to transport. So other parts of the country, there are large parts of the country where they don't do a lot of glass recycling because of that cost side of it. But here in Colorado, we absolutely encourage glass recycling. And again, we're really fortunate to have that closed loop right here in our state.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Anything else? I don't want to miss anything, especially for the folks that stuck around. I want to make sure that all questions are answered. Anything at all? Perfect. Well, thank you guys. I hope you guys did see the very friendly comments directed towards our presenters today from this group. A lot of people were very grateful for your presentation. I can tell you I'm very grateful for the presentation as well. So thank you guys. Appreciate the expertise. I appreciate the time coming on. Red Carpet appreciates you guys participating. If there's anything I can do, please reach out to me. And I encourage you guys, spread the word for these folks and then reach out to them directly if you have any follow-up questions. All righty, guys. Well,
Thank you, Chad.
We'll see you guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.